deployment. So if you are, let's say you work an application DevOps engineer, not a platform engineer like me, you can probably, your team is mostly deploying applications, not more like making the whole DevOps process easier for other DevOps engineers and other team, because it depends on your job role. Mine is global. Mine is more like a global role where I get to, rather than just deploy applications, we do more. The pipelines are something for those deployments. We build them, we maintain them, we optimize them, we innovate on them. Infrastructure supporting logging and monitoring, we set it up, monitor, optimize, and innovate on it. So it depends on your role. However, if you are an application DevOps engineer or you assist software engineers to deploy, you plan your deployments. Sometimes a lot of people, they like to deploy in the evening, change window, mostly in the evening, let's say from 4. Depends on the organization. For mine, we are not really limited by time because we can churn out changes anytime. So we've made our CI/CD process highly efficient such that we can churn out changes even right now. So long all the change management standards has been met. The pipeline will not get to churning out change if it doesn't pass certain parameters that has been set on the CI/CD pipeline. Remember when I was talking about CI/CD pipeline? So that is the goal. The goal of platform engineering is self-service. So self-service such that the developer can build, deploy by himself to production without having to involve a DevOps engineer directly. That's the goal, platform engineering. So that is what we do. So sometimes you just plan the deployment and the developer can just go ahead to deploy. However, if in terms of rollback, they need your inputs, probably they want you to help rollback. As a DevOps engineer, you also set automated rollbacks, the canary deployment and the likes. So it's a lot of stories. It's a lot of reality. It's a lot of work on the day-to-day for a DevOps engineer. We've not talked about the networking aspect. We talk about domains, applications not being reachable within and outside the cluster or from nodes where you have to troubleshoot at different layers. But again, as you go into it, you go ahead, you see more, you get to discover more. Then update secret manager. You can manage your secrets. So in Kubernetes or any platform, there are certain EMVs an application needs to run, like database credentials and the likes. In Kubernetes, we don't want it as plain text in a cluster, such that anyone that has access to that environment once it describes your pod or your deployment, it will see your database password and username. That is, in production environment, that is the riskiest of the most riskiest action you will ever take. So what do? We use secret management tools like HashiCorp Vault as your key vault. So there are different tools you can use, but just update secret management. Just take that. The reality is that you collaborate with devs. You are constantly learning, collaborate with QA engineers. So it's not that. The reality is it's not just you working as DevOps engineer on your own. You are collaborating with people. Remember, operations and development team. That is what you are there for. It's a culture. They are there to make it smoother and faster. Basically, it's all about automating chaos and putting it into order. They will need to do a manual scan for security. As a DevOps engineer, that is unacceptable. Let it be automated. Let it be within the CI/CD process. Once the developer is done building, let the security scan happen. Integrate the tool with the pipeline. Let it be based on events. Let it be based on event and action, and there should be real-time response between the tool and the CI/CD pipeline, so that the developer can get the status of the scan. So again, it's all about automating chaos, things that are in different places. So you do a lot of integrations as a DevOps engineer. So that's just it. Then skill dev. So these are some questions. I don't think I'll be able to take all these questions. These are some questions you would be asked as a DevOps engineer. How does infrastructure as code work? In my slide, I try to reference these questions at different places. Even in the subsequent slides, you also see where I reference some of these questions. What is GitOps and how does it improve deployments? How do you ensure security in CI/CD pipeline? I've talked on Vera code. Integrate it. Let it happen before a deployment happens. Let it happen before a deployment happens. What are the key DevOps metrics you should monitor? Thorough metrics, like I said, deployment lead time, deployment frequency, mean time to recovery. So explain the concept of security shift left security. Shift left security means that security issues or vulnerabilities should be discovered right from the development phase. Let it not get to production before we discover it. So that means that your security integration must happen at build time, immediately after build, before deployment or before important deployment. So again, understanding what tools you use for logging. So somehow, some way, I've touched a lot of these questions, but I just outlined them here because somehow, somewhere, to make it more relatable what I've said. What is the Git? Okay, what's the difference between DevOps and SRE? A DevOps engineer and SRE applies engineering to site reliability. A DevOps engineer, well, you know, who a DevOps engineer is difference, major difference. As DevOps engineer, you are probably most times you are the one that will set up the tools and an SRE would use. On my own experience. So what are the benefits of containers over virtual machines? We'll get there. I've already said it in my previous class, but we'll get there again when we talk about containerization in future classes, by God's grace. How do you handle deployment failures? I've talked about that. What are blue, green, and canary deployments? That is, when you look into canary deployments, you would is a method of rollout. But don't worry, this lesson is not for that. I don't want to divert. How does Kubernetes help in DevOps workflow, container orchestration, and the likes? I mentioned this in the previous class. What is the difference between Terraform and Ansible? Previous class, I mentioned that. What are the key DevOps? Okay. Explain the concept. Okay. What is it? Okay. How do you handle rollback strategies in production? Rollback strategies, you can use what was this called? And implement automated rollback. Automated rollback. I mean, rollback strategies are more than this one, but I don't want to take my time because I still have like 2 more slides to take. So again, everything here is literally straightforward. I've explained majority of what's here already. I'm just trying to outline it to make it more relatable. Core skills and interview insights. There are some certain skills that are core. Like I mentioned before, CI/CD pipelines. You must understand how to automate build, test, deployment. Containers versus VM. Why containers? When should you use a container? Why should you use a virtual machine? So lightweight containers and everything. Probably more heavy, you can use a virtual machine. So you need to understand. That is why we're dealing so much into virtualization. That's why now the previous class took a lot of time. When I took my time on virtualization and virtual machines, talking about the OS structure, the hypervisors and the likes. When we get to containers, or when you guys get to containers, you would then do a major comparison between containers and virtual machines. Then blue, green, and canary deployment, zero downtime, and gather rollout strategies. So the goal of every rollout is to make sure what's it called, downtime is zero. Remember, I talked about Kubernetes rollout option where we have what we call rolling updates, such that the old application will never leave the cluster unless the new one is up and healthy. They also have gradual rollout strategies where we'll talk about canary deployment, blue-green deployments, and what you have. Then tools to mention that you should know. It's not for you to mention. You should know. Terraform, Ansible versus Ansible. I gave this what's it called? This comparison in the previous class. What's Terraform? When I told you guys that Terraform is, I would always advise Terraform is used mostly in building. Ansible is mostly for operations and maintaining. Maybe you want to install and update, you want to install a software, you want to update a software. That's where you use Ansible. I mean, you can use Ansible for more than that. I'm just saying my own personal best use case experience from my own end. Let's say you want to upgrade the Kubernetes cluster. Use Ansible. Declarative versus procedural. Straightforward. Monitoring, Prometheus, Grafana, ELK. So, like I mentioned before, let everything you are saying, let it relate it to real life scenarios and tools that you've used. That's why you are learning. Yeah. Growing as a DevOps engineer, after getting the concept, you already know these things and you already know how do you grow. Advanced questions, they could ask you, what's the difference between a DevOps engineer and a security engineer? I just put the straight answer here. DevOps focuses on culture. Like I said, DevOps engineering is implementation of the DevOps culture, engineering-wise. SRE applies engineering to reliability. What's GitOps? Git-driven deployments for consistency. You don't just go and do kubectl apply -f and go and apply deployment. That's not good standard. That's bad. Rather, put it in the Git repository. Let that Git repository be pointed to the cluster using a particular continuous delivery tool, either Argo CD or Spinnaker. So it depends on your use case, or Flux CD or whatever they call that tool. So there are so many tools you can use. So many tools you can use. key metrics, like I said, deployment frequency, deployment lead time, mean time to recovery. That was a secret manager. Use Vault, AWS Secret Manager, Azure Key Vault, Vaults, and the HashiCorp Vault, Azure Key Vault, and the likes. Then next step, learn Kubernetes, security, and CI/CD. I've already talked on that. Security for a high-performing organization, for an actual organization, security must be in your CI/CD. It's not something you should go and learn. It's something you would do when you get into the job. Then certifications, apply, sign up, or is it register for certifications? Azure DevOps Engineer, Professional DevOps, Azure, Microsoft Azure DevOps Expert. You have this at 400, different courses. AWS is also the security there. I mean, a lot of us know these things. When a quick Google search, you get it. Just certifications needed as a DevOps engineer. You can get your Linux administrator certification if you want to, or if you want it. The next steps, experiments, build a pipeline, GitHub actions. I've already told you guys this. These are like your personal things. It's personal things you need to do to grow on your own. But these are also basics. Not basics, these are also standards you need in an organization where you are DevOps engineer. So fear not, they are not difficult. It's just time you need to get to this stage and build on it. Then one thing you should know, stay curious. Always ask questions. Like always ask questions. Someone like me, I always ask questions a lot, especially when I initially got in. Always ask questions and automate everything. There is a particular exam we normally use. We say anything you do 2 times, that you have to do 2 times manually. Not like I do it today manually, I do it tomorrow manually, do it next tomorrow manually. Anything you do 2 times upwards manually needs to be automated. But not logging in, logging into a particular SM tool, not logging, like logging into GitHub, no. Talking about actions in the whole DevOps atmosphere, things that you do twice needs to be updated, needs to be automated. Anything you have to do twice needs to be automated. So have that perception and we'll be good to go. Then what else? I think we'll spend like over 15 minutes. Let me see if I still have an extra slide to talk on before I check. Okay, thanks for listening, guys. I will take questions now. Again, you can drop your questions on chat, or you can just unmute and talk. I'm with you. I believe there should be questions for this. I believe there should be questions for this. Can you hear me? Hello? Okay. Do we have questions? Do we have questions? I mean, for those of us that still have, what's it called? Let's say technical skill gap before we get it, like I mentioned initially before the whole session started, I said that if you are not there yet, don't worry. These are things that you will get to see. So it's good you know it now, so that in your process or in the journey of learning these various tools and skills, you get to have a benchmark. You know that, okay, this CI/CD I'm learning, security, software quality, scans, so code quality scans and everything must be integrated on it, because I know that in an interview, I would have to probably talk more on this or know this, or this is a required skill for any DevOps job anyway. So it's something that you always come across. It's something that you always come across. I learn best by relating. That's how I learn. I can see something now and probably not know what it is. But when I go back to learn the preceding skill sets that I need to execute that particular action in future. Once I get there, all I need to, oh, I got here before that time, but I didn't understand it like this. Now I know it better. So it becomes very easy. Relating, that's how you learn best. That's why this is necessary now before we proceed technical wise. So questions. If there are no questions, let's all unmute and introduce ourselves. That's it. If there are no questions, I know it's pretty much straightforward. It's not, it will not call for much because it's just talking about what you will see, realities that you would see. It's not more technical where we have to ask technical questions. So, unmute and introduce yourself, please. Adewale, is it Adewale Adedamola? Unmute and introduce yourself.
Sorry, I have a question. Or did I say I have a question? Or someone in the backend group dropped a question last week. For DevOps, dropped it personally to me. Right, so I told him to join the class, but he could not join because he traveled,
Okay.
went back to
What was the
school. He's not in
question?
the country. Yeah. So
Okay.
the question he's asking is that you watch this video actually. That's what I'm asking. He's saying that he has been in the he has been in the backend space for a while, and
Okay.
he's trying to transition to DevOps.
Okay.
He was asking about roadmap for him from backend to DevOps. Then the second question is now that he's much more familiar with AWS, but the current company they are using Google Cloud. Then there are several other tools that you get to meet in the other companies you go to. So he was asking for his younger brother that which one should they start with? Is it AWS because it's the most popular, or which other one? I don't know if you got the questions.
Yeah, I get the question. The first one is how does it transition from backend to DevOps engineering? Well, I'll start with before I became a DevOps engineer, I was into software engineering with Java and Python. So transitioning is to transition, you still have to learn the basics, containerization, virtualization, container orchestration. It's the same way. I mean, it's what we've been doing. I don't know if he has been joining our lessons from class one. The same roadmap, if you are transitioning, it makes it easier for you to interact with other languages or interact with what they call programming languages. I mean, initially, when we started this lesson, I said that it will always be nice to have a software engineering experience because as a DevOps engineer, you are automating what you are working with is softwares. So that is a software engineer is already a plus. Transitioning would not be difficult. It's just to learn Linux, Docker, or sorry, Linux container. I don't want to use Docker because Docker is just a container technology. There are many more than that. Learn Linux, Docker, understand container orchestration, understand virtualization, virtual machines, understand networking in Docker, networking in Kubernetes, networking in any networking, understand DNS, and he's good to go. That's all. Linux containers and Kubernetes. He was used to AWS. Now he's using, what's it called? His organization is using Google Cloud. So that's where the basics come in. If you understand the basics, if you are switching between cloud providers, it should not be difficult. If you are saying you want to do serverless applications, you were doing serverless applications on AWS before. When you get to Azure, you use Azure functions. Same principles apply, just different platforms. When you get to Google, you use a different, if you're using TNS, if you're using what's it called, AWS Credential Manager, now you find yourself in an Azure environment. You use Azure Key Vault. So the same principle, the underlying principle, that's why we always stress on knowing the basics as a DevOps engineer. You can replicate it in any environment. I see a DevOps engineer or an efficient DevOps engineer as one that is platform agnostic when it comes to adaptation. You can easily move from platform to platform. So you should not fear. Google Cloud is not different from Google Cloud is a cloud. I mean, what is a cloud environment? It's literally someone providing the compute resources you need and other plus other services that you need to achieve what you would have done on-prem or physically. So that's what we call infrastructure as service. That's what it is, infrastructure as service. That's what cloud providers are. And they basically offer the same thing, but in different ways. So it's no different. It just needs to get used to if it complains of the UI, I understand. Personally, I don't like the other UI, but I mean, it's fine. I don't like the other UI, but it's fine. AWS is very, I mean, but when it comes to the principles, the basic principles, images, setting up instances, setting up a Kubernetes cluster with Azure, sorry, with AWS, or setting it up with Google Cloud, same principle applies. There's what we call Google Kubernetes Engine. We have what we call Elastic Kubernetes Service. We have what we call Azure Kubernetes Service. All these guys are all implementations of Kubernetes by different cloud providers. So all I would say is let him try to get what's it called, the intersection between what the particular tool or skills he was using in AWS and what he's facing now in Azure, sorry, in Google Cloud. If let's say he was running containers in AWS or using virtual machines there, let him know, okay, he will know it will no longer be called virtual machines on Google Cloud. It's called instances on AWS. It's called virtual machines on Azure to have a different term in Google Cloud. So all you need to do is to draw the fine line between those resources. What is instance called? What is an EC2 instance called in Azure virtual machine? What is it called in Google Cloud? So that is how it's going to be like. So he will just take a few times since he's already used to the cloud environment. Just a short amount of time and it'll be fine. Any more questions, Adewale? Or is that fine? Is that response fine? Are you satisfied or do you need me to go deeper?
I actually told him the same thing. So yeah, he will listen again just to validate.
Thank you very much for telling me that. So there's no limitation. There's no limitation. It's usually the same thing, just different platforms. Infrastructure as service. Any other person with any question? Because if there are no questions, I mean, I would like to give us our Saturday back. I'd like to give us our Saturday back, and I'll see you guys next time. I'll see you next time. And if you have any questions, I mean, we'll have a WhatsApp group chat that you can always drop questions on. Wilson on this call. He reached out to me then. I know I'll give him a response and he should be fine, but is he on this call just to be sure? Probably not here. But that's all. Thanks, guys, and do have a nice weekend. And I'm happy that we all understood
Thank you,
this
sir.
lesson. Bye-bye.